Hello once more and welcome back to Reese Rambles and indeed to another weekend. I hope you're having a fantastic time so far. This is Ramble number 70 and again, just like last week, I've got something ever so slightly different for you, and I'll just explain why that is and why I'm using a different microphone and why I'm recording this on my phone rather than on my camera like I usually would. So today is Monday the 17th of June, and I'm actually going to be away for a couple of days later on in the week, so I won't have a chance to record my ramble on Friday like I usually do. And that, of course, means that there hasn't really been any new news since last week, since I recorded the last ramble on Friday, which went out on Saturday. So I could give you a load of news that's nearly a week out of date, but I thought I would try to do something ever so slightly different. And this is also a bit of a test for me as well, because in future, if I'm away or whatever and I want to kind of record a ramble on the move, this is the setup that I'm going to have to use. I'm not going to have my nice big condenser microphone. I'm probably going to have to use my lapel mic like I do for most of my videos. Just check that's recording. Yes, it is. And of course, I'll be recording on my phone because, I've taken my camera on holiday a couple of times, but it's perhaps the most valuable asset I own as far as the channel is concerned. So I don't want to do this as a studio tour. And this is probably going to end up being a little bit shorter than other rambles as well. But I know people get upset when the one time I missed a week a few weeks back, people got upset, and I don't want to let my people down, But yeah, I don't want to do this as a studio tour, but what I am going to do is pick you up and take you for a bit of a walk around, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to talk about some projects that I'm working on and some ongoing videos and stuff. So there will be some spoilers in here for some upcoming future videos. Also, if you're a fellow retro tech YouTuber, there's probably going to be some ideas that you can steal. So yeah, fill your boots, but I'll be keeping an eye on you, and if you do release any of this stuff before I do, I'll be pointing this to this video and saying, look, you stole my idea. So this is the evidence, this is the documentation. But yeah, no problem at all. So let's do the thing, and hopefully this still works for the audio listeners. I'm going to describe everything. Why am I standing up? I'll be out of shot. So I'll describe everything as best as I can for the audio listeners. I appreciate this is still a predominantly audio offering, but for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll get some nice stuff to look at as well. Not a proper studio tour. There will be a proper studio tour at some point. I'm still kind of finishing sorting some stuff out. But if you are watching this, you might get some glimpses of some bits that haven't been seen since I've redone the studio. So without further ado, let's go for a little wander. Hopefully I've got the optical image stabilization enabled on my phone. I think I have. Okay. So this just here, my very first project that I'm going to talk about today, is a Pentium 4 system. This is a small form factor Pentium 4, and it's RM branded. So they made all of the school PCs here in the UK, and a lot of you will probably remember using something that looks similar to this back when you were at school. Of course, Pentium 4 would have been around sort of 2002-ish. I think this is a 1.8 gigahertz system, so it's around that time. And I actually did some supporter exclusive videos with this very machine, and I ended up blowing it up. So yeah, the very first video that I did, I switched it on and I powered it up, and I actually commented in that video that I could smell burning, and it's never worked since then. So this motherboard, I've kind of been working on this, desperately trying to revive it, and I bought one of those cards that goes into the PCI slot and gives you like post boot error codes and stuff, and it's got LEDs so you can check all the power rails are okay. And the first one I bought was quite a basic one with just the 3 LEDs and very basic codes, and it's the lights all light up, but it doesn't do anything. So the motherboard actually powers up, the power light on that comes on, but that's literally all it does. It doesn't beep, it doesn't post. So I'm desperately trying to work out what on earth is going on with that. So I actually bought a slightly more advanced version of the same card. Of course, these things are handy to have anyway. And they do PCI and ISA. In fact, I'll link to those just in case you're interested. I'll make those affiliate links. So if you want to buy one, it doesn't cost you any extra, but it does help the channel out a little bit. That's the pro YouTuber move. So yeah, that's that Pentium 4 Micro ATX motherboard. Real shame that that one died, and yeah, I've just been kind of filming the repair. I've got it hooked up to a new power supply that I've just picked up just in case it was an issue with the power supply. I also bought a power supply tester, so as you can see, I'm spending my supporters' money well. But yeah, still not really making much progress with that, which is unfortunate. But I do have a trick up my sleeve, potentially, for that system coming in the very near future. So that's my very first ongoing project that I wanted to talk about. I have recapped it somewhat. I have replaced some of the caps. I've actually bought some more caps so I can continue with that, but there's just so many bloody capacitors on this, and obviously it's all like modern lead-free solder, so it's a pain to get it to melt. Got the old soldering station out, and yeah, that's that project, and that's the first project that I wanted to talk about for this ramble. So you'll no doubt be familiar with my Time desk PC, the Ice Desk. And I did a couple of videos on this over on the main channel, and I also did one on the second channel where I tested out SBMU, which is a Sound Blaster emulator. And this is weird. It's a PC built into a desk. It's a Celeron 1.1 gigahertz system. It's actually quite a terrible PC, but that's one of the things that I love about it. And I've got Windows Millennium Edition running on there. So yeah, only the best for the desk PC. And I did a pickup video recently where I got some new speakers and a keyboard and a mouse and a joystick, and they're all Time branded and they all match that really nicely. So I'll probably do an update video on that. And I actually have an idea involving a game. Now, I'm not quite sure if I want to give away exactly what I'm going to be doing with this PC, because I found something historical from the 90s to do with a much-loved game. And well, the game's Duke Nukem 3D. I'll talk about that. I'll mention that. I do own a box copy and stuff. But I found something online that I think is going to be really, really interesting to look at, just to do with Duke Nukem 3D. And it was an official thing back in the day. And it's actually part of that game's history. And this was the kind of PC that I was playing that game on at the time. I mean, I appreciate this is a little bit later. This is 2001, and I think Duke Nukem came out in 96 or something. But it's close enough, isn't it? I think it's close enough. And maybe to add a bit more interest to that, I might have a look at some of my MIDI devices and stuff, and maybe do a bit of an update on the MIDI video. So that is another thing that I have in the pipeline. And the next thing that I wanted to talk about is the Atari 2600 Plus. Now, I love this console. This is the modern reincarnation of the Atari 2600. It was made by Atari. It's an official thing. It was actually developed by a company called PlayOn, who are reasonably local to me. And I just love this. I think it's great. The compatibility with the old games is really good. They've released a new firmware for it. They released that back in December, and that was in beta, I think, officially. But there has been another development on that front. There has been another firmware, which is an unofficial community effort. And if I was recording this ramble normally, this is the point where I would be showing you the Atari Age page. So let's just stick that up on screen. And it's actually sort of based on that original beta firmware, and the community have kind of taken it and run with it and added a few new features, support some of it for some other games and stuff like that. And yeah, for new improvements and bug fixes and stuff like that, which is really, really cool to see. And I did actually kind of predict that in that first video that I did. So I was hoping it would happen, and I'm really pleased that it has happened, and I'm really pleased that the development has been so active on that. So what I want to do is get that installed on my own 2600 Plus, and I want to test it out with some of those games that some of those games that have been problematic, and also test out kind of the before and after with some of the bug fixes and stuff that they've done. So that might end up being a second channel video. It might be a main channel video. I've not quite decided yet. Kind of a bigger, more all-encompassing thing to do with the 2600 Plus. And Atari are also releasing some 7800 games and accessories for this. So there's re-releases of some games. I think I covered this in the previous ramble. I think it was last week's or the weeks before. Ninja Golf is one of them. I've not got the list up in front of me, but so one of the other things that I want to do with this, that they're also re-releasing the CX78 controllers that came with the 7800 originally. And one of the things that I want to do with this is much more 7800 coverage, because that was really popular, the initial video that I did on this, and a big part of that was because I really kind of went deep into the 7800 side of things, which a lot of people hadn't done. And on that note, I have actually brought my 7800 from home. And what I want to do is, I want to do a power supply mod on this, because these have a really weird proprietary power supply connector on them. And there isn't, from what I can see, there isn't like a community USB-C official thing to convert these things to USB-C. and I might design one. I haven't done any PCB design and fabrication for quite a long time on my channel, and I've been looking for an excuse to design something. But the trouble is the community are too good, and everything you can think of has already been done. But I haven't managed to find one yet. If you are aware of one, please do let me know down in the comments. I honestly won't be disappointed. I'll just buy that one and show that one in the video. But yeah, as far as I know, that's not a thing. And the 7800, you know, such an underrated console, and I want to kind of do it as a bigger kind of more encompassing, all-encompassing thing where I talk about the history of this console. I've done a huge amount of research on this, and I have actually written something. This is a bit of an exclusive, actually. I have actually written something to do with the history of this, which will be I'll be talking a little bit more about in the near future. So, a couple of things over on the workshop side. Wow, the acoustics are nowhere near as good on this side of the studio, are they? But again, this isn't a tour, just talking about some upcoming projects and ideas and things. The full tour will be coming along very soon, I promise. But yeah, just over here on the workshop side, which I'm still kind of finishing off and putting those finishing touches to, we have a big pile of MIDI modules. So we've got the Roland PR100 digital sequencer, which takes those quick discs. And if you've been watching the second channel, you'll no doubt have noticed that I did a video on that where I actually changed the drive belt, and then, like a complete and utter fool, put it back together without recalibrating it, and got quite a bit of flack for that, which was absolutely fair enough. I did it in a rush, and I should have known, and I should have tried recalibrating the drive, calibrating the drive heads and stuff. And I have actually gone back and done that. In fact, that was last week, and I recorded a whole video where I did the calibration process and everything. Got to the end, same result, didn't work. I tried all of the quick discs that I have, and I just got errors on those. So yeah, I didn't think that was worth putting out as an actual update. I have pinned a comment on that video now, just explaining what I've done sort of since making that video, but still not working. But I don't know if that's an issue with the drive or something else to do with the hardware, or indeed the discs, because I mean these discs came with it, but I don't know if they've been formatted or if they're corrupt, or I don't have anything else with a working quick disc drive to be able to verify that they actually work. So who knows, that project's on hold for now, probably not one I'm going to revisit. In fact, that thing actually came free with one of these other modules anyway. I'm not sure, I can't remember if it was the SC155 or the MT32, but yeah, of course, the other modules that I have here, I have the Roland MT32, a legendary piece of kit from back in the day. I have the SC155, which is an SC55 with a load of extra knobs on it. SC55, of course, being the module that Bobby Prince, the guy who composed the Doom music, originally used. So, you know, that would be a cool one to revisit. And the SC88, Sound Canvas SC88, which of course is a lovely classic MIDI module. Might use that for that Duke Nukem thing that I mentioned a moment ago. And then, yeah, there's also this other thing, this stereo mixer thing with a microphone input. I think that's from like a karaoke setup, and again I think that came bundled with one of the other bits that I bought. But one of the early successful videos on my channel was to do with DOS gaming and MIDI, which I actually did with my RM486 PC, and I've been meaning to revisit that because so much stuff has happened since then. I did like the MT32 Pi and all the rest of it. So I'd quite like to do an updated DOS MIDI video and maybe cover like Mister and all of that stuff in there as well, because obviously the MT32 stuff's really well supported in Mister, so it would be cool to see how that's progressed over the past couple of years. Another ongoing project is the PicoMEM. Now this was designed by a chap called Freddie V, who has a YouTube channel, and you know, this is an open source ISA card which goes into your old PCs, old kind of XT class PCs, anything up to kind of 286 era. I think, you know, the 386 and 486 era, there are probably slightly more modern, more contemporary solutions that actually work, maybe. But yeah, this is absolutely ideal for this. So this is the Atari PC3, which I think was around 1987, something like that. It's an XT clone. It's got a turbo mode, so it has that 8 megahertz mode as well. And I've got the PicoMEM installed in here. So what this is it's a Raspberry Pi Pico on an ISA card. And basically all of the GPIO on the Pico is connected to the ISA bus, and that's basically it. And you know, there will be people out there who will argue, and they'll say, well, you could just argue, you could just emulate the whole PC on the Pi, so why not just do it that way? Why are people putting Raspberry Pis in these old PCs when they're actually more powerful than the machines they're going into? But I love this. It's such a good project, and it's got a very kind of bare bones feel to it. It's got a really nice BIOS interface that you can actually go into on boot up to configure all of this stuff. And it supports Wi-Fi, so you can it can emulate an NE2000 network card, which you can then connect to Wi-Fi. It supports disk images, so it replaces your XT IDE and your Gotek, so you can actually do hard drive and floppy disk images on this thing, on the actual Raspberry Pi Pico. And most recently, it has also had AdLib support added. So if you get one of these very, very inexpensive DACs, the digital to analog converters, which you can get on Amazon and eBay and AliExpress and all the rest of it, solder it in and install the firmware, and you can actually turn this thing into an AdLib card as well, kind of like the similar PicoGus project. And that's just really cool. I'm actually working on this video at the moment, and the reason that this got delayed, this kind of was my #1 top priority, and I was kind of testing everything out and rushing to get this thing out. And the reason this was delayed was because Adrian Black, Adrian's Digital Basement, a few weeks back, released a really, really comprehensive, a really excellent, and I will link to it because I think you should check it out, a really comprehensive video all about the PicoMEM, where he went into it in great detail, all the memory configuration, everything else. He even did the AdLib stuff, which was actually unreleased and unannounced at that time. He obviously got permission from Freddie to do that, I think. Or did he mention in the video that he didn't actually have permission? Can't quite remember. But so I thought, well, he's covered everything in great detail. So what I'll do is I've got all of that footage, you know, I've got all the research that I've done, and I will turn all of that into a video. But what I will do is just put that on hold just for a while, just for a few weeks, and let that kind of settle down. And then obviously any kind of new developments, because Freddie's working on this thing and releasing loads of cool new stuff for it all the time. Any new developments, I can cover those over and above what Adrian's done, and yeah, you know, kind of add to the pool of information that's out there about this card. Now, the next future project is my arcade machine, the Video Star Mark II. And this was a video, I made this 3 or 4 years ago over on my main channel, and I will link to that. It's quite interesting. Gives you a tour of all of the various features of this machine, because I've built, this was basically an empty cab when I got it, and I've built some quite interesting features into it. It's got like an interchangeable steering wheel thing. It's got the coin mechanisms have been replaced with switches, so you can actually use those to insert coins and stuff. It's got pedals. It's got a really cool, fancy, quick release joystick mechanism, and there is a reason for that. But that's all explained in the video, and that will all be explained in the update video when I get around to that. But the main thing about this is well, there are actually two things that I need to do with my arcade machine. So I need to recap the monitor and change the flyback, because it's gone very, very dim. It's not a bad monitor at all. It's actually one of those touchscreen things out of one of those Mega Touch pub quiz machines, believe it or not. And I've taken the touchscreen layer, what do you call it, thing off the front, which was a huge pain because the adhesive that they'd used was just disgusting, horrible. But yeah, and the monitor actually worked great for a while, but it was just getting dimmer and dimmer over time, and it just needs... I'm not going to use the word rejuvenating, because I know that has a very specific meaning in the world of CRTs and stuff, but you know, I'm going to recap it and change the flyback, and hopefully that will solve its issues. Of course, I need to get around to doing something with the sides still. I know I mentioned like 3 or 4 years ago that was still outstanding, and the T-molding that still needs doing. And the other thing is the actual brains, the actual guts of this thing. So it had a PC inside it, and then during COVID times and when it was difficult to get hold of things, my NAS at home actually started having issues, and I desperately needed to build a new NAS. So what I did was took the PC out of this and actually used that as the basis for my new NAS, because of course it was hard to get hold of hardware and stuff at the time, and it was kind of sitting there unused. So yeah, the arcade machine has become a NAS, so I need some new guts for it, and I'm going to get one of Taki Udon's new DE10 clones that he's been talking about over on Twitter, the one that's going to be less than $100 supposedly. Can't wait for that to come out, and this will then be a Mister-based arcade machine, and of course I will take you along on that journey as well. But again, and you know, this is one of the great things about having this studio, because I was working on this in my garage at home, and that is even more full of junk than this is. and it's just nice to have this space where I can take this thing apart and take the monitor out and have it on a desk and all the rest of it. So that's the arcade machine. That's probably a slightly longer term project. I want to get some of this other stuff out of the way first, and I want to get my hands on that D10 clone to go in there. But yeah, another future project. So my next project is a bit of a fan favourite. It's the PC-9821, of course, part of that legendary NEC PC-98 series. And it's looking splendid, isn't it? But I've not really done much with this machine since I made that second video, and there's a very good reason for that. And that is because Carl, aka Bitter Blitter, who's a good friend of mine and an old friend of the channel, supported my stuff for a very long time. He's a really lovely chap. He's actually gone out and bought a PC-98 so he can try to rebuild the Windows 95 environment that came pre-installed on this. So if you haven't seen that video, basically my PC-98, when I got that from Japan, had the hard drive in it with all of the NEC customized version of Windows 95 on it. Unfortunately, it was corrupted, and I managed to recover quite a lot of stuff, but not enough to actually get it booting, which is a real shame because the recovery media and stuff for these is just impossible to get hold of. And of course, everything that is out there is in Japanese, and my Japanese, I mean, I claim to speak some Japanese. I've basically been doing Duolingo for a couple of years. I'm not that good. I'm certainly not good enough to read technical manuals and install software and all of that. And besides all that, the actual recovery media for this specific model isn't available, and these machines are a huge pain, as you'll know if you know anything about PC-98s. Well, I say a huge pain. They're just not PCs. If you're a PC guy like me, it's just kind of a slightly different world. But he's working on that. He works in data recovery. He's had the hard drive. He's recovered a load of stuff. And he's actually rebuilding a working environment with DOS and Windows 95 and everything else on it. And he's done it all completely off his own back. I didn't ask him to do it. He's just done it because he thought it would be a cool project to work on. And if he hadn't have done it, I would have been doing it as an ongoing thing. But I don't want to duplicate his effort. And he's very enthusiastic about it. So yeah, that's going to be really helpful for the channel. So I'm just kind of waiting to get that back. I'm not quite sure how far off it is. Obviously, I'm not going to push him on it, but it is on the back burner. And there is some other stuff I'd like to check out on this machine. But as you can probably tell, if you've made it this far, I do have a lot of stuff going on. But as you can hopefully also tell, I'm really enthusiastic about all the stuff that I do have going on. So, and it's just nice to have a proper space where I can kind of work on that. But yeah, that's the PC-9821. There is progress happening on that. I do fire this thing up occasionally, actually, and just have a quick game of something on it, whether it's that PC-98 version of Pac-Man that I showed you in the video, or indeed one of the other things. And I have also been using this to test the OSSC Pro, which is also ongoing, and I should probably talk about that as well. So the OSSC Pro is of course the follow-up to the original OSSC, or open source scan converter, and this is brand new from the creator of the original, Marcus. This is a prototype that he's sent to me, and I've been doing some testing for him. Basically Bob from, I explained all of this in the video, and of course I will link to that if you missed that one, you want to know the backstory, but Bob from Retro RGB contacted me and basically asked if I'd be interested in helping out with the testing of this. I was a little bit reluctant at first. I wasn't really sure what I had to offer, but Bob convinced me that I own lots of weird PCs that Marcus didn't have access to, and that actually having me involved would be quite useful. So I did a very quick initial rundown, just hooking some stuff up to it just to kind of get a feel for it, and particularly the new scaler mode, because the original was basically just a line multiplier, so it would take the resolution and it would double it or triple it or whatever. Whereas this has an actual proper scaler mode, so you can set the output resolution, and then kind of independently of that, it will switch input resolutions and refresh rates and stuff like that. And that's kind of part of what I've been testing. It is still under very, very heavy development, so there are some aspects that I'm kind of waiting just to kind of see how they play out before I kind of show those on video. But very, very promising piece of hardware, and one that I can highly recommend. And that's kind of a bit of a longer term test. So the most recent thing I did with that was to hook it up to my Atari STE. Because I had a question from someone about the high resolution mode on the STE or on the ST, and how that doesn't work with basically any scaler out there. Yeah, actually the OSSC Pro handles it a lot better than any other system that I've seen. So that test was well worth doing. Always looking for feedback on that, and obviously stuff that I can test with it. I also had some feedback based on the PC-98, just kind of going back to that. I had some trouble getting that running in the 24 Hertz mode, and the Pirate Gamer Boy, who's been helping me out, has been absolutely brilliant with the PC-98 stuff, contacted me and pointed me in the direction of a little utility, which I already have installed on there, that I can actually use to switch it into that mode. So I need to get that hooked back up to the OSSC Pro and see how it handles that. And yeah, that's another thing for another video. So that is that. A bit of an insight into some of the projects that I have coming up in the near future on my channel, over on Control-Alt-Reese, and indeed on this, my second channel. Yeah, that's the stuff that I kind of have in the actual pipeline in the immediate future. As far as second channel stuff goes, I do also have a tendency to just kind of pick up interesting stuff and just make a video on it on a whim. So there'll always be some wild cards and some weird stuff like that to keep things exciting and interesting, and you know, to throw into the mix. There's also a lot of stuff on my backdrop here, and I will cover this in the proper studio tour when I do that in the near future. But there's some stuff like this RM laptop. I think that's like a 286 or something, or you know, something of that era, and it's got like one of these, you know, LCD, but you know what I mean, LCD, not like LCD displays. And as far as I know, that actually works, but I don't have a power supply for it, so I need to work out how to get that powered up and obviously strip it down and check it all over properly. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into. And there's just, you know, stuff like this, the old Nintendo Pong clones that I've got here. I've got the Sinclair ZX81. I want to try and do something with that because it's a system I know absolutely nothing about. I've got my old Acorn Electron up here, which as far as I know has a dead ULA, I think, but I'm going to have to thoroughly test that because apparently ULA failure isn't quite as common as I expected, which is great. You know, obviously it's always good to get kind of community feedback on these things. It's part of a big reason why I put this stuff out there. And yeah, so loads and loads of inspiration, a very inspiring place to be, and a lot of cool things going on. But that's all I have for you for this week's ramble. I hope you've enjoyed this ever so slightly different thing. Of course, I will be back next week with some news, retro gaming and vintage computing news and stuff. But you know me, I like to mix it up every once in a while. So hopefully you've appreciated the slightly rambling nonsense of my project backlog. So thank you ever so much for rambling with me this week, and I look forward to doing it all again next week. Bye.